Good morning, everyone. This is Jeffe Kennedy. Uh, Clearly do not know who I am. I am an author of epic fantasy romance, and I'm here with my first cup of coffee, which I clearly need much more of. Today is, say it with me, it is Friday, woohoo, November 22nd. Next week is Thanksgiving here in the US, and I will be traveling. I'll do a podcast on Monday, but not next Friday. And before I go any further, let me apologize for Monday. Um, yes, it cut off abruptly. I put it in the show notes, but clearly not all of you read the show notes because I did have a couple of people say, hey, it cut off. So what happens is that on Zencaster here, the pause button is next to the stop button. And I had paused it to check something. I don't know. I was going to tell you all, I don't know. I was going to look at my spreadsheet and tell you all some number or something or another. And I went back to finish, and I mean, it was like 5 seconds, and I saw that it was spooling because I'd hit stop instead of pause, which means, I mean, I realize for a normal podcaster it would be like no big deal because people edit and they do post-production, and so I could have recorded my sign off and then edited it together, but you all should know what you're getting here. A first cup of coffee by now. You ain't getting no editing. I can't, I just won't spend the time on it. So I apologize. I figured it was like not, it wasn't like I was mid sentence or mid thought. I had finished that thought. I was going to say one more thing and sign off. And I thought, eh, eh, which I feel like is an important thing for all of us to remember that, like there's this idea out there, and I've heard people say it, like you should give 110%. If you're not giving 110% of your effort, then you're bad and wrong. You're a loser. I don't know, but whatever. I won't delve into the type of personality who says that kind of thing. The point is, and I do have one, is that sorry, I'm ever so slightly distracted this morning. A brief tangent. A FedEx driver ran over our retaining wall at the end of the driveway. We have these natural rock walls, and this doofus guy was turning into the driveway, and I could see it from my office window. I saw him going back and forth, and then he pulled into the driveway, and people tried to deliver stuff to our back gate and not to our front door, even though we even have instructions, go to the south side, but people don't know which side south is. David went out there to tell this guy, don't deliver to the back gate. And the guy didn't say anything. And later I walk out to the mailbox and I see he's totally crushed our wall. He ran over the solar light we have there. I filed a complaint. FedEx has been great about it. I'm giving you the short version of the story. But the claims adjuster called me on Wednesday and I missed the call and called back. And she still hasn't called me back. So I'm determined not to miss her call again. So I uncharacteristically have my phone here and I'm watching it. So I'm attempting not to be distracted by that. But let me go back to the point about the whole 110%, 120% thing. I think it's really important to remember that it's simply not possible, right? That there is no such thing mathematically as 110%, right? It's an imaginary number. I mean, you all know what I mean. You can have something that's 110%, if you increased, it's kind of, percentages are funny, right? When people talk about crime statistics and they'll say, well, murders went up 200%. And it's well, if you go from 1 to 2, that's 200%, right? But as far as effort, as putting effort into something, you can't give more than 100% of your own effort, right? You could give 110% more than you did the day before, but it would have to be a comparison thing. So anyway, the point is that you have to choose where you put your effort, that it is not necessary to put this intensive effort to make everything perfect. And I have very specific goals for this podcast. And the main thing is um, I did it to replace blogging. Um, and it's part of my outreach as an author. And I love that other authors listen to it. I love that readers listen to it. I love that aspiring writers listen. I'm fascinated by the various kinds of people who listen. I love that people listen to it because they are looking for thoughts on, how to live life. Cats in New Mexico weather, right? So anyway, all of that is to say that I have no aspirations to be a huge podcaster, right? Because I'm a writer. I write books. That's where my primary effort goes. So I'm not going to get sidetracked by putting a bunch of effort into polishing the podcast, right? Part of this is keeping things sustainable for me. Sustainability is huge, whether or not we can sustain an effort. I know a number of people who have started podcasts and did these very wonderful professional podcasts, but then they can't sustain it because it ends up being such an effort, right? So one thing I did this week was I took a class with Becca Syme from the Better Faster Academy. I think that's what she calls it. I could check, hitting pause, not stop. Successfully navigated the pause button this time. The Better Faster Academy is correct. And I'll put that in the show notes for the three of you out there who actually look at the show notes. This is, by the way, I'm just amused by it. It is no onus. You do not have to look at the show notes. It's not a requirement. I think it's funny because speaking of effort, like the podcasting services, the streaming, like Buzzsprout where I upload or YouTube, they're always sending me tips, how to engage with your audience and how to do this and this and this, and they're like always wanting me to do more with the show notes. And it's like, no, not gonna. There is a freedom in deciding that you are not going to do something, people. Let me advise that for you. If you are feeling overwhelmed of any kind, deciding that you are going to do 80% effort on something, 50% effort, help. You can do 10% effort on something. If I am going to, actually I have it right here. I'm going to wave my magic wand for you. I'm giving you permission to not put a bunch of effort into something that isn't that important, that doesn't matter, that's not going towards your primary goals, your primary purposes, right? Right? Put your effort into the things that matter most to you. And if you don't know what those are, then figure that out. So this is my great coaching advice, right? Figure it out. Make a list, prioritize, write down what is it that really matters to you. We were having a conversation in my Discord this morning, my mentoring Discord, which you can join for a low price for every month through my Patreon. That's also in the show notes. But we were talking about, one of the gals was saying, and I love this, that one of her rules is that she doesn't clean the house when she's home alone. Because she said if she does that, if she cleans the house when she's home by herself, she's using, first of all, alone time that she could be using to write, to do something like clean the house, which is not her primary purpose. But then also then if you come home, if her family comes home to a clean house, they think that's just how it is. It's magic, right? The house magically becomes clean. So she only cleans when everybody's home and when her husband is helping her, and so that the kids can see them putting the effort into cleaning the house. And I love this. I love this. One of the things that we were talking about too is one of the gals who is neurodivergent is struggling with getting back into the habit of writing. And you all know, if you're a longtime listener, that I'm a huge proponent of building a writing habit. That if you build the habit, then the habit will carry you through. And she was explaining that as a neurodivergent person, she doesn't have habits. That's just not how a neurodivergent person thinks, which is hard for me to address, right? Because I'm blessed with happy brain chemistry. But one of the other gals who's neurodivergent suggested that she think in terms of systems, which makes a lot of sense to me, and frankly sounds to me the same as habit. But I think for her to think in terms of systems that will allow her to um, ignore household chores, that will allow her to step away from the demands of other people so that she can focus on writing. If it breaks down, then she can examine it as a system. So it becomes less fraught than as a habit. And frankly, it's whatever works for you. That's what's most important. So, anyway, this idea of prioritizing what's important to you, um, housework. Housework is necessary, but it's not the most, it shouldn't be the most important thing in our lives. I mean, I don't think really any of us wants our epitaph to be, she kept a really clean house. And let me tell you, people, I have been to funerals where I, for some reason, I went through a raft of them back when I lived in Wyoming, where it seemed like every funeral I went to for a woman, they would say, "Oh, well, she was a great housekeeper and she loved her grandchildren." And the men, they would talk about like the things they did, but the women, it was like, "Oh, she kept a really clean house." And I thought then, I don't care about that. I like having a clean house because it's a more restful environment for me. I am delighted to pay somebody else to clean my house. They do a much better job. I pay an accountant because she does a better job. And I pay cleaning ladies because they do a better job. Um, it's worth it to me to have an expert do the thing, especially if it's something I don't want to do. I like having a clean house. I do not like cleaning the house. It's not the most important thing to me. Writing books, getting the books written is the most important thing to me. And we all have this. We all have the things that we want to do the most. And prioritizing those things are, it can be difficult because other people want to change your priorities, right? But it's up to us to insist on, no, this is the thing that's getting, you know, 90% of my effort. If you like break up your daily spoons, a lot of people with chronic disease talk in terms of having a certain number of spoons when they wake up. They never know what it's going to be. If you think of your effort for the day as 100%, and like, how are you dividing up that effort? And, frankly, the things that are at the top of your list should be getting the bigger percentages, right? So anyway, I took this class with Becca Syme on author business. I'm clicking away to make sure I get the names right and avoiding that stop button. It's the Author Business Phases Summit. Uh, and I got a lot out of it. I highly recommend it. I think I've recommended Becca Syme before. I think she's gold. There's a lot of dross out there. There's a lot of scammers out there. I think Becca is the real thing, and she has youth. This is the first time I've taken a class with her. Mostly, I've just talked to her on social media. I've heard other people say good things about her, but this is something she also does for her day job, and she understands a lot about business. And I thought, this is a good time for me to evaluate like where are the pain points in how I run my business. And she's very good because she talks in terms of whether you self-publish or traditionally publish or do both. And she talks about the 5 phases of the business. And it was the first day she had a great package. You could do $500 to like learn everything, or she had a JOMO package, joy of missing out. So this is the same thing, right? Joy of missing out. It's this deliberately choosing not to do things that you don't need to do. That was $150. And I thought, okay, great. I know that I know that I'm not like phase 1, 2, or 3. Almost certainly. I thought, I'm going to be a later phase. I don't know if it's 4 or 5 or what. So the first day she did an overview where you learned what phase you are, and then you could come back if you were in the JOMO package to do just that phase. And it was fascinating to me to find out as I was listening to her. She starts with 1 and goes all the way up through. And like 3, I'm thinking, all of these I recognize. And when she talks about like, here are the characteristics of this phase, and here's the milestones of this phase, and here's the pitfalls of that phase. And like each one, I was recognizing it, and I was thinking, wow, like even when she got up to phase 4, because I thought, well, maybe I'm phase 4 because I really don't feel like I'm there, right? I don't feel like I'm at the top, right? That's how we think about it, final phase. So like phase 4, she's going through it, and I'm thinking, I went through that like 8 years ago, and I remember very clearly everything that she talked about in phase 4, and I wish I had known then, like some of the things that she talked about. So it turns out I'm phase 5, the mature business phase. We were kind of joking about it in the chat, and it was really fun to meet the other authors who are also phase 5. But we were joking about it being the mature business phase, and Becca did come in and laugh with us and said, you don't have to be mature as an individual to have a mature business. But one of the characteristics that zoomed home for me was, she said in phase 5, she said, if people tell you that you are at the top of your genre or your niche, even if you don't feel that way, you are in phase 5. And I thought, wow, it's funny because the newer writers often ask about like, how do you know you've arrived, and when do you feel like you've succeeded? And the truth is you never feel that way. But what changes is people start telling you that you're there. uh, there's a gal who's now working here in town. I've known for a little while, and now she's working at Beasley Books, and we had a funny conversation because we were talking about Never the Roses coming out next July, and she was saying how happy she was for me, and I said, yeah, it's very exciting and should be a big breakout. And she said, yeah, it's funny, I thought you were already broken out, I thought you were already there. And it's like, I don't know, what does there feel like? So I guess it doesn't. I guess that's the answer, is it doesn't. But it was really interesting to take this class and identify like what the pain points are, and things that she said you have to do. And it doesn't come just from her. It comes from this whole analysis of business practices and everything. She was saying one thing about phase 5 is you have to build in taking time off, which longtime listeners will know I am not good at. And I even said in the chat that one thing I've discovered I'm doing is that I have started treating going to cons or book signings or other like writing related events as vacation, because I travel for them. But they're not actually vacations. It's still my work. It's still my business. And I have to figure out a way to like take an actual vacation. Um, and it was funny because at the very end, she did a wrap up, and she said that she wanted us all to sit on the information for a month, and think about it. And before we make any changes. And I said I realized with great chagrin that I felt a sense of relief at not having to figure out how to take time off yet. So, but it's not going to be yet. Update on where I'm at. I've picking up pace on revising A Rose in the Mirror. I'm 40% through. That's actually pretty good, huh? Speaking of percentages, it's actually 39%, but we'll call it 40. I'm on page 121 of 309. I'm going to have about 9,000 words to write to finish it, I think. And then I will be turning it in. Editor Ali is back from parental leave. We're going to have a talk about publicity. We're going to have a meeting on the week after Thanksgiving, and they sent me the whole publicity and marketing plan. I met my team, so it's all very exciting. The cover that I thought we were going to go with, it sounds like now that Ali's back, they're doing a little bit more discussion, but we should have a cover soon. And it was, yeah, everything feels like it's moving along, so that's great. All right, so I've successfully made it through the whole podcast without accidentally hitting the stop button. So that's it for me today. I'm going to, I don't know, maybe I'll get up to 50% on this revision or more. We'll see. It's going faster now. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. I'm going to a Friendsgiving party on Sunday, so that'll be lovely. And this weekend, next week, for the rest of your life, remember, I'm giving you permission. Here's the permission wand to only put partial effort into something that is not a top priority for you. And put effort, go ahead and put all of your effort, or as much as you want to, into the thing that's most important to you. And then somehow we'll figure out how to take time off. All right. You all take care. I will talk to you on Monday. Bye-bye.